We should be
I
able.
wasn't,
Huh?
able to peruse the episode due to events that occurred
Dude,
today.
you literally missed nothing. Missed zero things. It was the
That's too
most.
funny.
Oh, dude, it was such a filler episode. Like, just complete filler. Nothing happened really. I mean, things happened obviously, but like there was nothing of any kind of consequence. Like, if you had hey Victor, how's it going? If you had
I'm trying to pull YouTube
skipped
up.
this, oh,
Sorry.
you're good. We sound all right, or at least um, if you had just skipped it, and I could just tell you what happened because it was nothing. They just wasted a lot of time because they had to. I don't remember how many episodes this season was going to be, but it's like this is that crap that we're always talking about where it feels like a show is wasting your time or a movie's wasting your time,
Yeah.
and no one was like, you could cut most of this into 20 minutes and then move on and get to something like interesting. Like, I was thinking about it as the episode was kind of ending. It's not a great system, but at least Disney has like this quota for sort of like action going on in their shows. Like, they have to have like one or two action scenes like per episode. And I'm not saying that's how you have to do it, because like if your story is good enough and your acting and your characters are good enough, you can have an entire episode that's just about them and it'll work.
Right.
The problem is that everything they did this episode wasn't engaging. They skipped over. Remember how I was telling you last week? I was like, man, it would be really interesting for them to actually take some time to talk about like the fallout in Jackson and what that really means and how that affects their lives. Well, they just skip over all that. They just do like I think it's like a 3 months later thing. And they're like rebuilding and everything's fine. And you're just like, oh, okay. And then they're like kind of talking about some of the things, like there's little things here and there that are just kind of like mentioned, but it's also throwaway. And then there's like this old man who isn't involved in the games at all, who gives Ellie a rifle that's better than her rifle, and her and Dina head out to Seattle. And Dina knows like all of the names of the people who were involved in killing Joel. And that, I'm pretty sure, wasn't how that went down, because I think Ellie was the one that like overheard that in the game, if I remember correctly, or at least she has Abby's name and maybe the WLF, like, so she has some kind of idea of how to find them. I can't quite remember how that went down in the second game. Not that it matters, because it's all kind of dumb anyway. But so they like do that, and then they head off to Seattle. You get introduced to a faction that is not introduced to like way later in the game, and in this they just do it so that like they're around, and it's to get like a kind of like dumb payoff at the end of the episode. Like it's all it feels like emotionally manipulative. Like, not that media, it's like it's there to try to like manipulate your emotions. Like, you're trying to get a rise out of people with stuff, but I just mean it in like the bad way, where it feels kind of lazy, where it's like, oh, here's this man and this child that he's looking after, and there's something kind of weird about these guys, and I don't really, I know what's going on because I played the games, but like if you haven't played the games, you don't have like a lot of insight into it, or played the second game, because it's not in the first game at all.
Right.
You're watching this and you're just kind of like, or at least I think you'd be like, what? Like, who are these people? And then Dina finds them dead at the end of the episode. And it's just like, oh, okay.
So really, not a whole
whatever.
lot happened
Dude,
at all.
no, not a whole lot of
Just as the
anything.
complete, like, how can we take up an hour worth of time
Yep.
with nothing?
Yeah. And it's like it's like they could have just headed straight for Seattle, like, and that's how it happens in the game. And it's weird to even defend the game in this instance, but like this episode's just spinning its wheels. And it seems like that's kind of, I can't remember what, I know we've talked about another show that does this, has done this in like recent memory. Maybe it was Rings of Power or whatever, but like it just is spinning its wheels because they're not.
Seem like there was a show recently that was doing that really bad.
Yeah.
Was it Rings of Power? I don't think. I mean, yeah, it did do that, but I think it was a different show that we were referring
to.
At least recently.
It's definitely one. Maybe it was season 2 of House of the Dragon.
No, I don't think it was that. I think, man,
I can't remember, but I know I've had this conversation with you about.
Haven't really talked about it, but yeah, we've had that conversation about that regarding so many shows.
Yeah, and this is just an episode where it's just spinning its wheels. They have this whole like council meeting to vote on whether they should go and get justice for Joel, and the council decides that they shouldn't, and Ellie goes anyway, and it's just like, y'all could have skipped all, like, none of this is important.
Yeah.
It's actually,
what was the point of showing that they said, everybody said no? Okay, great. Well,
yeah, she's going to go anyway. We all know she's going to go anyway.
It doesn't seem like that's something Ellie would have even gone to and entertained as well, because she would have been like, well, I don't care what they say. I'm going to go anyway, so I'm just going to go and get a head start.
Yeah. I think Ellie as a character has gotten even more insufferable.
Oh no, that sucks.
Dude, they keep playing her up at, like, they basically, like, okay, sorry, let me backtrack just a little bit. I don't know what their end goal is with her, because you're being told, like, the psychiatrist, who is a made up character, is attempting to, like, convince the audience, because this is why this conversation's going on. She's talking to Tommy, I think, and she's like, well, Ellie's a liar, and Tommy says something like, well, people lie about things, and she's like, yeah, but Ellie is a liar. And so it's like, okay, so is that what you want me to think of our now main character of this show? Yeah. And then it's like, if that is true about her, then that was some really bad exposition. And I just don't. We'll never know. I don't think we'll ever find this out, but it just seems like they don't really know what to do with the narrative this season. It's almost like almost seems like they're walking on eggshells, because they know how divided this story is, or like how divisive the story is. But I don't know if that's why the show seems to be doing what it's doing, or if, I don't know what's changed. But something's different about this season. I mean, other than it being from a property that has lost a lot of its audience since the second game came out. Right. But dude, I don't hear anybody talking about this. It just doesn't. I don't know if there's been any numbers. I haven't really been keeping up with it lately. I've just had a lot going on, but it doesn't seem to be out. Like, no one on X has been talking about it. Yeah, and like the closest thing that I've gotten is Whoop has been telling me that some of the people that he works with hate it because they killed off Pedro Pascal's character.
Yep.
And it's yeah.
People were saying, she was like, "What's the point of even watching now with him gone?" She's like, "I still do want to see how the story ends up." She's like, "I know that you know, but
oof.
Yeah." But she's like, at the same time, there's nothing that's like, we haven't even watched it, dude. That's why I was telling you. Like, obviously,
It's
due
it's
to stuff that happened with family, but we
right.
had the opportunity last night to watch it, and she was like, "I just don't really want to watch it." I'm like, "Good, because I don't either.
Yeah,
I'll
dude.
just watch it tomorrow before the podcast."
Yeah. It's yeah, and it's an episode. This episode you can easily just put on in the background, and like that's what I was doing. I was like kind of watching, but also doing some other stuff.
Yeah,
And it was the right choice because there was nothing. I mean, like, dude, there's not even anything worth critiquing, really, because there's not a
it's
lot.
that bland.
Yeah, there's not a lot that's going on, you know. Now, I'm sure there will be some. I mean, the next episode's probably gonna have some action in it. I thought they were gonna get to a specific part from the game in this episode that they didn't. So I'm curious if that's what they're gonna get to next time. But yeah, man, it's like it's the worst kind of people sitting around talking to each other because it's not interesting. Like the drama and the stakes just don't seem to be there. I don't know. It's like Ellie isn't coming off the way she's like really bitter and angry in the game, which a lot of people hate, and I'm with them on that. But it makes a lot more sense than what they're doing now.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't think anyone in the cast, except for maybe the guy that plays Tommy, really has the acting chops to carry this show. And
That seems to be something that's lacking in the show.
yeah,
That a lot of people have noticed at this point. Outside of Pedro, that's why I brought up why would you even entertain killing him off? Because he's your best actor in the show.
yeah, they should have thought of another way to do it. In the same way, I mean, dude, this is the exact same conversation.
This is an instance where they should have gone against the source material
Yeah.
and not killed him at all. At least if you were not like this
I don't know,
and
man,
not
like,
this soon.
yeah, killed. It would have been interesting for them to just, yeah, this is like the one instance where Hollywood decides to stick to the source material, and they shouldn't have.
Yeah, we finally have an example.
It's so weird, dude. It's just like it's upside down world or clown world, man. Because like, you know, you can't do a faithful adaptation of stuff that people really like. Like, we can't get a good faithful adaptation of a freaking Resident Evil movie, but they're gonna stick closer to The Last of Us. You know, we can't get. I mean, like Mario was all right, I guess. I enjoyed it. It is, you know, for what it was kind of fun. But I'm having trouble thinking. I mean, Arcane season 1, I guess, still stands as the like pinnacle, even though didn't like season 2. Man, I went. I had like a work trip on Sunday. And I was driving with a few people that I work with, a few people that are that I'm like closer with. And one of the girls that I was riding with, she brought one of her friends. And at one point, we were just like driving along. She's like, "Oh yeah, David doesn't like season 2 of Arcane." And I'm like, "Guys, if I have to have this discussion with you right now, I'm gonna crash the car." It's like it's gonna get too intense. But ultimately, man, it's like people, when you are clear and concise with your arguments or with the things that you don't like, people tend to agree. People, they're, especially in real life, people tend to be a lot more rational because they're not trying to get like hate clicks or whatever X is turned into.
Bait.
Yeah, engagement bait. Because I hate that crap. Like, I actually want to have like a conversation and talk about the points and the stuff that I'm like,
okay.
This doesn't work. And every time, listen, no one can deny they did Heimerdinger dirty.
Yeah.
It's like such a strong argument. It's funny. It's, you know.
Yeah. I try to tell my brother-in-law not to watch season 2 of Arcane.
Yeah.
So just stick to season 1 and live in that world.
Yeah.
He's like, that bad? And I'm like, yeah, it's the drop off is
And
atrocious.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny. The thing that people always cling to when stuff isn't very good is they're like, well, it looked good. And I'm like, yeah, season 2 of Arcane is beautiful. Like, the animation's awesome. Even the, like, quote unquote music videos, they all look great. And it's definitely got a really good style. And it's like, but if that's all it is, then it's, for me, it's just shallow. Like, I want y'all to, like, create interesting characters. And it's just funny, man, because, like, there just aren't. I know a very, like, small handful of people that seem to still care about that. And unfortunately,
I think it's slowly fading away.
Yeah, we're just getting pretty shallow character writing these days. People just don't seem to care. You know, it's like their big brain concept or whatever seems to take the place of well thought out characters, you know, in like a well constructed plot.
Yes, I was about to say that word, well constructed plot.
Yeah.
To where things aren't forcibly happen, but they're naturally occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, characters are making choices that are leading to this, not events just happening by coincidence.
Yeah.
So what would you rate this episode, David?
Oh, dude, it's like a 1 out of 10. It's legitimately the worst episode of this season so far.
Ooh.
It's just, I mean, at least the last episode had some action, as dumb as it was. There were exciting things going on, you know? And
on a scale of Obi-Wan Kenobi to Wheel of Time to
it's still better than those so far, I would say. Because most of that stuff I find to be just atrocious.
Yeah.
You know? There's a lot of dumb stuff that's happened in the show already, obviously, but I don't know. Star Wars is just on Star Wars, even Wheel of Time, like that stuff is just on a completely different level than this. At least The Last of Us had a decent first season, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, Rings of Power to me is the bottom of the barrel, just because I think the fall off, the mountaintop is Tolkien, right? And so your fall is a lot farther than with a lot of these other properties, in my opinion.
I think you forget, like, Obi-Wan in particular, because I always, it's been so long since I've watched some of that stuff, because somebody was asking me about in-game the other day, and I was like, honestly, dude, I was like, I would have to, like, go back to, like, and watch it again in order to fully remember, like, all of my talking points. Like, it's hard, like, I go through so many things after a while when it's not in the zeitgeist anymore. Like, I'm just not thinking about it anymore, you know? And so it's like I'm not always remembering everything that was going on. But the Obi-Wan dude, you remember the fight that lady got in with the stormtrooper where she, like, palms him in the head and knocks him to the ground? And then they were trying to convince us that, like, some random Rebel Alliance pilot was important, like Carl or whatever that guy's name was. And then there was one of the most egregious things in that is when Obi-Wan is, like, flying down to Tatooine and Darth Vader's following him, and then they get down to the planet, and Darth Vader says something like, why have you been chasing me? And it's like, you followed him, my guy. Like, what are you talking about? It's just those shows are, like, I swear, just made by committees, and no one is talking to each other, so you're always going to end up with this weird dialogue or these weird instances where they just don't add up, you know? So yeah, I still don't think The Last of Us is quite as bad. Like, it's got, I think, like, a slightly higher caliber of execution, even if the material's just not very good. Like, it's only really Naughty Dog's fault that the material they're working with isn't very good. You know, they had a popular first season. Of course, they're going to make a season 2. We all knew where it was headed, and weirdly enough, obviously the show didn't reach the heights that the game did. Like, there's just not as much, like, of a fever pitch around the Last of Us TV show as there is around the games. or the first game and then leading into the second game. So you're just not going to have the same sort of like backlash. I think a lot of people now too, like we live in a world where the Acolyte exists and where, you know, Daredevil comes out to pretty much die. And so people just kind of seem to have stopped caring. And I wonder, it's something that's kind of interesting that we'll have to kind of keep an eye on. I just wonder if there's a lot of media that people are just like, they're just tuning out at this point, you know?
Yeah, there
now,
is.
they're not tuning out Reacher, you know?
Yeah.
So there is stuff that people are still being drawn to.
That is worth their time.
Yeah, but a lot of this high fantasy stuff, especially because it's written really poorly, and like everything around all of the high fantasy stuff on television that's been out recently, and all the money they've been putting behind it, it's not doing what they need it to do. And for some reason they keep pretending the world, like this world is so different from the way that it used to be. I mean, it used to be that you would put out a pilot, and if your pilot didn't hit certain numbers, you never got anything else. And if your pilot did okay, then you would get like a shortened season, right? So like the first season of The Office, the first season of Parks and Rec, those are shortened seasons, and then the shows continue to get better and better and better. And so they got like, you know, full like 23, 24 episode seasons, whatever the number is.
Right.
They don't do that anymore. And instead it seems like all of these production companies are just like gaslighting you into believing that the show is doing better than it actually is, and then just putting out a bunch of seasons and wasting a ton of money.
Yep.
And I'm just like, where are they getting all this money?
Or they don't even
like when's it going to break?
Seasons in an intelligent way.
Yeah.
What I mean is, like, you would think, like, you have a property like The Rings of Power, for example, right, that you're committing $1 billion to right off the bat.
Yeah.
That you don't know, or, you know, 500 million, let's just call it half that, regardless. Even if it was 250 million, even if it was 150 million, with the millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars like that, you would think you would go ahead and greenlight 2 seasons so that you have them film 2 seasons back to back. And then that way you release season 1, you get the reception of that, you can hopefully try and course correct with season 3. But at least by the time you get to season 3, you can already know at the end of season 2, before you get to season 3, okay, do we need to cancel this? If so, what do we do? But if you have a hit, at that point, okay, season 1 was a hit, we can release season 2, and while that's filming, we could go ahead and while that is releasing, we can go ahead and be filming season 3,
Yeah.
and then have that structure and just kind of rinse and repeat that process. Because right now, even if the other problem within is that it's bad quality, plus there's a huge gap of time in between the seasons, to where now people aren't coming back because they don't hardly remember season 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, it's funny that we're talking about this, and we'll move on, and I'll talk about Sinners a little bit, but I've been going back and watching Scrubs.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm trying to use it for some inspiration for some stuff that I'm writing, just like a general like tone, and looking at some like character work that they do in that. And that show, dude, it's a 20-minute per episode sitcom, basically, that is so, the writing in it is so sharp, and it doesn't waste your time. It hits all of these beats. It's still really funny. And dude, legitimately, one of the first jokes in the first episode of that is an N-word joke, where he's like talking to Turk, his buddy who's black, and he's like, well, what if I'm like, I think he says something like, well, what if I'm listening to like Tupac in the car and I'm by myself and I'm jamming? He's like, can I say it then? And he's like, no. And I was like, I can't, like, you'd never hear a joke like that today. You know what I mean? And it's so, it's so funny. And one of the reasons it works so well is it's so relatable, because people have had those conversations with their friends. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you can't say it. You can't say it in the car. It's just it's so good. And like the way that they handle like the exposition and JD talking to himself, and you know, being the narrator for certain things that are going on, and the way that he sees the world, and how he has these little like funny like moments where like there's one where he's sitting at a table with Turk and one of the other surgeon interns, and the other intern is talking about like how he wants to get with Carla, and Turk likes Carla, and he's like, whatever, man, like I'm not bothered by it. And it's like this, all of a sudden they do like a quick flash, and it's Turk like breaking that guy's neck. And it's because he's like, it's just the way that the show, it's like he's saying one thing, but then obviously he feels another way, and it's just like clever way of getting that across to the audience. And I'm like, where did all of these writers go? Like, what happened?
Right.
You know, I mean, the show's not that old. I mean,
oh, speaking of old, so my wife got her hair done this past weekend.
Yeah.
And the lady that did her hair was 24 years old. And my wife was talking to her about Lord of the Rings, and she's like, "Yeah, I haven't watched those movies yet. My boyfriend keeps trying to convince me, but they're just so old." And I was like,
dude, who
they hold up. And I'm like, number one, that
Yeah.
just lets us know our age. But then number two, it's like, no, those movies hold up. Come
They
on,
do.
now.
They do. I don't know, man. I mean, it's like we've been talking about, like Gen Z's just interested in different stuff, and then it's like
Yeah.
Minecraft, and I'm like, okay, I need to check. You know, that movie, you know, talk about another movie that like came in, made pretty good money, and then just nobody's talking about it anymore. I'm gonna check the. Let me check the numbers.
All the
let's
kids
see
are
what's
probably
going
talking
on.
about it. That's probably why we aren't hearing about it, is because it's more. So it's done $818 million
So it didn't
worldwide.
Yeah, so it didn't cross $1 billion.
That's probably
I mean, it's
hit
still.
$1 billion.
I mean, at this point, I kind of doubt it. It just depends on how long
for that movie to get that close, though.
Yeah, that is close for sure. It's definitely one of the most successful movies this year. I was just trying to find the. So right now, let's see. So how's Sinners doing? Actually, it's doing way better than projected. Worldwide, it's at 175 million. Does it have? Production budget was 90 million. So. Now, the thing about this one is I would probably argue for a lower budget. So you have like your production budget and then like your marketing budget. I'm not sure the marketing budget on Sinners was going to be as high, because this is not a. Like 90 million even seems like a lot for this. Like, dude, how on earth did they make Godzilla -1 for 15 million or 10 million or whatever it was? Because like Sinners, dude, there's a little bit of CG stuff in it, but nothing. And I guess like, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much Michael B. Jordan was making, but that, I don't know. Might just break even. We'll talk about it in a minute. Because I have seen it and I have thoughts.
What kind of thoughts do you be thinking you thought?
Let's see what Minecraft. I'm just curious about the budget on it. So the production budget was 150 million.
So you just see what times that by 3.
Yeah. So it did well. Yeah. I mean, it definitely was successful. For sure,
because that's what 450 to 500 million, so probably around 450 if you times it by 3. But
still I mean, these movies are just like way too expensive, man. But that's good. I mean, that's like old school Marvel numbers for the most part. So we'll definitely be seeing another Minecraft movie. Yeah,
you got to think they had Jason Momoa, Jack Black in it. Was there any other?
Well, and then Yeah, getting the rights to make like a Minecraft movie probably wasn't very cheap either.
Yep.
So that's probably where most of your budget went to, and then it's like kind of weird CG. It's a weird kind of creepy movie. I mean, just like visually.
Yeah.
Surprised it like hit so well with people. I will check it out when it's on streaming. Out of curiosity,
I'm right there with you.
That'll be when I do it. So I mean, Sinners.
That is a stupid movie, but
12
Minecraft.
days.
But I mean, I wouldn't expect anything different.
So Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith is number 3 right now. And it's really funny looking at this because it tells you days in release. So like Sinners is 12 days. The Accountant 2 is 5 days. Star Wars is 7,286 days. Because it came out in like, 90 or 2005? Something like that.
That's wild.
What's another one on here? Oh, Pride and Prejudice was back in the theater. That's 7,110 days. Happy Gilmore is 10,666 days. Oh, God. That's so weird, dude, to look at those numbers like that. All right. Let's talk about... I'll give you kind of a rundown of Sinners. I'm not going to spoil anything. I will say this, though. If anybody is planning on seeing it, if they haven't seen it yet, don't watch the trailers. Unless you've already seen them. Because I hate that they do this. And to be honest, if I was Ryan Coogler, I'd be very annoyed by this. For one, I think the trailers are misleading. They make it out to be a movie that it's kind of not, and they spoil a bunch of stuff.
Oh, I hate it when trailers do that.
It made me so mad. Because I was interested in the movie. It's like vampires, like stuff's cool. It's got like this not Until Dawn, From Dusk Till Dawn vibe, you know.
Right.
And then I watched the full trailer a couple months ago when it came out, and I was like, oh, you showed me like legitimately that trailer. I think shows you like 85% of the movie. Like you get almost everything except sort of like the fate of the main cast. Like, obviously, you don't fully know what happens, but they give away a bunch of stuff, and it's really annoying that they do that. Now, Joseph, I'll say this, because we've talked about this in the past. It's something we haven't talked about in a while, about how there's a lot of interesting folklore from different places around the world, and you know, whether we're talking about like religious practices, whether we're talking about just different customs that different groups of people from tribes in Africa, or you know, people from India, or like pick your poison, you know. And the thing that happens a lot is that instead of trying to make a story that's like based off of a lot of those ideas, they just seem to take ideas because they think that stuff's going to be popular. I think Mo Fax used to talk about this, where it's like the what's the term I'm looking for? It's been a minute. But like that, let's take like Hollywood for instance. They only see the
like
value,
drama, entertainment, or something like that.
No, not so much that. Because I would say this isn't that, like, almost at all, which was kind of surprising considering the setting. But it's like the Hollywood only sees the value in what you would, I think, kind of, it's kind of dumb, but like what you would call like white properties, quote unquote.
Okay.
Where it's like
I get what you're saying.
Captain America traditionally.
So they want to take all these properties that were made by white people and race swap them, but they don't want to take a property made by like a black person or someone of another ethnicity, and make a property off of it, which is something we discussed I think a couple years ago when we were talking about more of the DEI stuff in movies and television shows, and was like, hey, listen, you don't have to do this. There's plenty of good properties out of Africa, out of Asia, out of South America, that's fantasy that you can adapt, that we can see on the screen, that's original, where you will have exactly what you're asking for, and your mind doesn't have to be focused on doing these check boxes.
Yeah. And forgive me because I may not be like fully describing that right. because it's been a while since we've talked about it. I'd have to go back and kind of look into it again as far as like the terms and all of that. But that's kind of the general idea, is that they're not willing to take risks on interesting, and we talk about like A24 a lot, and one of the reasons I like them is because they're willing to take risks on stuff that most studios wouldn't. And I have problems with Sinners, but I think overall it's probably Ryan Coogler's best movie. It's obviously there's no such thing as like a truly original thing anymore, because it's not like vampires are original. But he does a lot of interesting things. Some stuff I like. There's a couple things in it I don't care for. The sort of like the tonally, like, Sinners is a serious movie. It's got a little bit of levity in it because of certain characters. But there's a couple moments in it that I think are unintentionally funny. And they just don't quite work for me. And I'm not going to give anything away. Because it would just kind of, I think it would give kind of too much away. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff in it. There's a lot of music in it, which is something I wasn't expecting, and something the trailers don't really get into. And a kind of like celebration of the blues, and it's all kind of like nobody in the movie is like this like super altruistic character. Like, everybody has dimensions to them, and it's just kind of like wild to see in a movie like this, especially coming because his
actually having dimensions to him and being nuanced.
Yeah, there's like nuance to characters, and they, and don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. It's not. It doesn't like fully hit home, because at the end of the day, it's a vampire movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's still kind of got some of those like tropes of genre where but what's crazy, dude, is they spend a ton of time building up the characters in this, and for the most part, it works when you get to sort of the more grand genre-specific stuff involving the vampires. I like the setting and the atmosphere, and like all of the details in it, and all of the things that they do, from the wardrobe design, and I would say most of the sound design. There's one specific scene in the movie that I think doesn't work at all, and a lot of it comes down to the sound design, and then a couple of choices with the way that they like handle it. It's just a little weird, and came off like, I saw it with friend of the show, Justin, and he started like giggling a little bit, and I was like, yeah, I can kind of see why you decided to do that. I think he pushed a little too hard with certain things, but I think overall, it's a pretty good movie. And now I'm still catching up on a lot of stuff from this year, but it's definitely one of the better movies that I've seen this year.
Nice.
I don't think it deserves a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's ridiculous.
Where would you put it? On a scale of Godfather Part 1 to Godfather Part 3.
Oh, dude. Well, it's definitely not as good as The Godfather. I know nobody really likes Part 3 all that much. So, but
as far as vampire movies,
it's a good movie. I mean, it's not going to blow your mind. I don't think you're going to come out of it with some sort of like new sense of like whatever. But like, the movie isn't and that's what I was saying, is the movie's not preachy. It's not trying to get across you that like slavery bad. Or like, it's like the Klan's in it, and it's all kind of on the setting. And I think there's like three issues, like, of the major issues that I have with it. I think the movie's a little too long. I think the pacing, and that being said, like, the pacing is not quite right. I think they spend a little too much time on the setup. When everyone really just wants them to get into the vampires, like, you got to kind of give your audience what they want, and they spend a lot of time setting up the characters, which typically I like, but I think it gets to a certain point where you're like, all right, you guys got to get this moving, I'm trying to think, what was the other stuff? I think he tries to do a little too much towards the end. It's a pacing thing, ultimately. He has to, like, there's a specific scene, pretty much like almost at the end of the movie, that I think is like a pretty good payoff, but it needed a better setup.
Right.
Because the setup happens so early on that you kind of forget about it, and the movie just like outright, it's almost like they're staring at the camera and they go, hey, remember that thing from way earlier in the movie? Don't worry, the payoff to that is coming. And so there's a couple places that I think it kind of falls flat, but I think the acting is great. Michael B. Jordan he's a good actor. Honestly, they probably should just get him to play Blade at this point. He's like the right age. He's got the build for it. He's super athletic. Now, Marvel cannot seem to understand how to make a movie about a dude killing vampires. It's not like it's that hard. But he's great in it. He plays two roles in it because they're twins. And then weirdly enough, and this is something, again, the trailer does, they put Michael B. Jordan at the forefront, which makes sense when you're doing the trailer, but he's not actually the main character.
Interesting.
There's another actor who is the main character, and he's great in it. I'm pretty sure he's actually, like, if it's actually him singing and playing the guitar in it, dude is talented. And then you have like some other characters in it. Some of the actors you would know. Haley Steinfeld is in it, and she's excellent. She's good in like everything. That girl has had like such great acting chops from the minute she came on the screen in True Grit back in like 2010.
Yeah.
Like legitimately,
I forgot about her.
She's a really good actress. She can hold her own on the screen. Like, she's got that presence that you need for like the leading lady. And Joseph, funny enough, she plays white passing in the movie, which is a little bit of a spoiler, but I thought it was an interesting touch because when you first see her, she's got a relationship with one of the twins. And when you first are introduced to her in the movie, one of the other characters who's actually the main character is like, hey, that white lady staring at you or whatever. And this whole thing happens and she leaves. And there's like this offhanded comment at one point where he's like, oh, like, is she actually white? And then later on, like, she's talking to somebody in the movie and being like, well, she's like it's like either her grandmother or someone in her family is black, and so she's white passing, and there's like a dynamic there. Now, this is some of the stuff that I wish they actually had, because this is the like the nuance of it and the stuff that I think is really interesting when you're trying to make something like this, where obviously Michael B. Jordan's character in it is black. Like, he's very clearly black and she's not, and they're in love with each other, but because of the time period, people would probably want them dead because of that. Now, unfortunately, the movie doesn't really go too much deeper into that, and I think it was a missed opportunity. I think if he had made that kind of a B plot to the movie, I would have liked it even more. Because it's mentioned and like they do have great chemistry together. And then I can't talk about anything else because it's all massive spoilers.
Right.
But there's something to that you could maybe argue the way that they end up handling it is a little more of a subtle way of doing it, but I think it should have been one of the focuses. And I think the movie, it's like the pacing, and then there is some lack of focus in certain areas where it's like, this is the kind of movie that what probably should have happened is they should have done a theatrical cut that's like really tight and then done a director's cut afterwards. Because I think, and I would have to talk to some other people who have seen it, I think it's just a little too long. I don't even know if I would say it spins its wheels, because it does use the time that it has like really well. Just think there's some moments in there where they could have like cut some stuff out for like the runtime, and then done like a director's cut later on to bring it in, because that's what the movie kind of feels like. And I'm just like hypersensitive to that stuff now. I think it's because we've watched so much like garbage that it's like I'm like watching something and I'm like because I wasn't like checking my watch or anything, or like my phone, but there were definitely a couple moments where I was like, how much longer does this movie have? I was like, it seems pretty long. But yeah, overall pretty positive. At this point, it's probably worth just waiting till it's on streaming, because I don't know how much longer it's going to be in theaters, because nothing stays in theaters beyond like 2 weeks at this point.
Right. At this point.
But yeah, it's
a lot of movies is that nothing stays in theaters long enough for them to make a dent because of streaming, and then I think a big piece of the pie in all this is streaming killing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and they just don't. You don't get the same kind of return on streaming as you would if it was like physical copies.
Yep.
There's a lot of movies in the past that have found new life and become much bigger than they were in theaters because of like the physical platform. And so like all of this stuff like going digital, it is kind of weird to see. And I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to end up happening with a lot of this, because it feels like, and maybe this is being a bit too dramatic about it, but I was thinking about it today. It sort of feels like Hollywood is dying.
It does.
Like it's just this kind of maybe old dinosaur.
Yeah,
maybe so. Like Hollywood just feels like this old dinosaur that's been around for so long, and it just doesn't have much left, you know? And digital and streaming and these huge production budgets, it just doesn't seem to have the same kind of momentum as it did when we were growing up.
Yep.
So
no, you're absolutely right.
All right, Joseph, we've got a little bit of time left. I would, I'd say like mostly recommend Sinners. I think it's probably something that you don't have to see it in the theater. But I think it's pretty good. Like there's a lot worse things that you could be spending your time watching these days. It's funny though, dude. Wallace and Gromit was the first movie that I saw this year, and nothing's knocked that off its pedestal yet. Okay, now let's get into our last little segment here. My list of almost 100 must-watch movies for your normie friends. And so for those of you that don't know, this is just a list that I'm putting together that if you were to have a friend, maybe they're a Gen Z, maybe they just didn't grow up watching movies for one reason or another, that you could give them this list, and it's not going to be like all of the best movies that have ever come out, or the best, like, you know, it's not like all the art house stuff necessarily, or the things that if you're really into movies that you would maybe be like, this is one of the best things I've ever seen. It is kind of got like the more pop culture thing. There's a lot of genre in this. It's stuff that is going to be palpable for someone who's never really been into movies, like to give them a nice big chunk that would help them on their way if they're like really getting interested in it. So the way that this works is Joseph picks a number. Sometimes we do one movie, sometimes we do more than that. And I will tell him what it is on the list. So Joseph, 1 through 72.
72.
This one will probably, I think it's going to stay on the list. And the reason that it's on here is because, this movie came out in 2009. Funny enough, let's make sure that I'm right about this. Directed by Mark Webb, who this is the only thing on here of his that I like. Oh, that's funny. And this is like his directorial debut. I like this movie because it flips the rom-com back when the rom-com was still like a popular thing, which it's kind of died at this point.
Yeah, it had, unfortunately.
So this one's kind of, I go back and forth. I like this movie, but it's it takes the rom-com, kind of flips it on its head, does sort of the subverting your expectations before that was actually like an annoying thing to have to deal with all the time. And this movie is 500 Days of Summer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. I quite like this movie. I think it's creative. There's a scene in it about
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
And Zooey Deschanel.
Yeah.
It's got like a pretty good sense of humor. There's a scene in it that people don't stop referencing where it's such like a kind of true to reality thing about like your expectations versus the actual reality of an event taking place. So like what, you know, and it's like he's in love with this girl and he's thinking he's going to go to this party and he's going to win her back and they're, you know, going to get back together. And then so it splits it between what he thinks in his head's going to happen versus what actually happens. And it's great. And it's about a relationship completely falling apart. And I watched it towards the end of last year because I hadn't seen it in a while. And I was like, okay. I was like, it still holds up. You know, sometimes you watch stuff that you really liked, and you go back and watch it again, and you're like, it's like this is not quite as good as I remember it being. But I think for the most part, 500 Days of Summer holds up. This will probably end up mostly at the end of the list. And who knows? This one might end up getting knocked off the list. So
cult following, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. It was like a movie that a lot of people used to do like YouTube reviews of, you know, like retrospectives on.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people have kind of sick of it because of that. But whatever. I think it's kind of fun. It's, you know, it's got like a lot of interesting things to say about relationships and the dynamic of like trying to find quote unquote the one. And it takes a lot of that. It subverts that. And in subverting it, it takes it from sort of this like romanticized thing that always happens and tries to ground it a little bit more. And I appreciate that. I think that's something that you don't see very often. And it's cool that someone did that. All right, let's do another one, Joseph. Give me a number.
69.
69 is a hot topic of discussion recently. This is a movie. Yeah, this is a movie that came out in 1997, directed by Paul Verhoeven. Known for RoboCop, Total Recall. What else has he done? I was looking on his list. I could have sworn there's a couple other things that he's done, but this is one of maybe arguably his most famous movie. It's kind of stood the test of time. It's either this or RoboCop. This is a movie that people on the internet love to argue about the subtext of. It's Starship Troopers.
Oh, yeah. I heard they're rebooting it.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It's going to probably have more preaching in it than Sinners did, and which Sinners had like zero for the most part.
They're not going to be able to help themselves.
They won't be able to help them.
And it's going to be communism good.
And there's maybe, and there's like, it's an interesting argument, and I don't know if people talk past each other on the internet. That's ultimately what happens. And I think what a lot of people because they're like, well, the point is that the humans are the bad guys. And it's like, okay, I understand what you're saying. I think what most people argue at this point, I think the logical argument is that the movie doesn't do a good enough job explaining that, and whether that's the source material.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, or Paul Verhoeven not fully getting it. It's the story is about these people getting overrun by the bugs. And I think the thing is, it's like you have a hard time making bugs sympathetic. So like, sure, we understand what you're trying to get across as far as like, it seems like this very militaristic society is the reason the bugs were coming after them, because they started like either mining materials off of their planets or whatever the case may be. But the movie just doesn't do a very good job of explaining a lot of that, and I think it's hard to make bugs sympathetic. I think most people, when they look at that, they're not going to be like, "Oh, those poor bugs."
Yeah, they're not going to say that at all.
So yeah, but I think even if you're watching this movie just kind of on the surface level of what it is, you're going to have a great time. It's a classic, and I think
it really is.
It being a movie that people are constantly talking about and debating or arguing about, whatever the case may be, makes it something that is a must-watch. Like, it's something that it's got such a, and it's borderline, man. I would almost say Starship Troopers is probably more popular at this point than RoboCop.
Ooh, I could actually see that. I like Starship Troopers better than RoboCop.
It's tough.
Myself.
It's a tough one for me to say for certain, but I think at least at this point in time, it is. It's probably the most popular of that of the two. All right, let's do one more and then we'll close out.
All right, let's do 57.
57. Ooh, another one that people on the internet have a tendency to misunderstand the what's the term I'm looking for? Hang on, give me 1 second. Sorry, everyone, technical difficulties. I just added another movie to the list, so I wanted to make sure all of that was updated. You said 57, right? Okay.
Yeah, 57.
57's a movie that came out in 2003, directed by Edward Zwick, who also directed Blood Diamond, Defiance, which you may or may not have seen.
Yep.
Legends of the Fall, which is a movie that I actually that's a movie I actually quite like.
Back in the day, back in the 90s, right?
Yeah, dude. That's so funny that I was so on a slight tangent real quick, and then we'll talk about the actual movie that you picked. I last year went on a work trip. We were all driving on a bus together, and we were playing that game. You know, the one where like the person puts the phone on their head and there's like a topic on it, and they flip it up or down. His heads up, yeah. So we were doing movies, and Legends of the Fall came up, and I was like, it's got Brad Pitt in it, and it's a romance, and he fights a bear, or something like that. That was the way I was trying to describe it. Now, no, I think like one other person on the bus had actually seen the movie. But yeah, it was Legends of the Fall. I need to go back and watch that. It's been a hot minute.
I watched that for the first time last year. Well, I think I had seen a little bit of it when I was a kid, like really young, like 7, 8, 9 or something like that.
Yeah. It's like a romance, dude, but it's cool. It's like frontier and dude, I need to go back and watch it. I'm gonna try to do that. I'm gonna try to do that this week.
It has Sean Connery in it.
Yeah, I think you're. Oh yeah. Is that no? It's Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins. That's Anthony Hopkins. My bad. Yep.
Brad Pitt.
I had the face, but for the wrong name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a cool movie for sure. All right, so this movie, 2003, set at the end of a specific era in Japan, and it's The Last Samurai.
You said it's 2003.
Yeah.
Oh, Last Samurai.
The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise, who a bunch of people on the internet think is the title character of the movie. That's not the case. Oh, brother. I love this movie. I saw this movie years and years and years ago for the first time. I've always loved sort of like Japanese culture and just like architecture. The whole deal has always been really cool to me.
Right.
And this is, it's kind of it's like a fish out of water story. He's like kind of taken him as a prisoner by the samurai, and he like learns about them and their ways at the very end of that era. And I think it's really, really cool. It's, kind of a tragedy.
Yeah, a bit, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But it's an excellent movie, and one of my favorites of that time period.
I gotta rewatch that movie.
Mm-hmm. I put this, Gladiator. There's probably another one, but there's like a specific it's weird to say it this way, but it's almost like a specific feel of these kinds of movies. They and maybe it's because they're all like period pieces,
Right.
but they're kind of like they're definitely geared more towards like a male audience.
Yeah.
But it's like this, and maybe Braveheart can get thrown into that too, even though that's a little bit before either of those other two movies. I need to think about it a little bit more. But yeah, I love The Last Samurai, and it's number 57 on this list.
Nice. I gotta start creating my own list like yours.
Yeah, dude. It'd be funny to ultimately like compare them.
Yep.
All right, Joseph. Well, I feel like my voice is about to give out.
Yes, sir.
I've been talking all day and talking on the show. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we go?
No, we won't be doing the pod next weekend because I have a family emergency to attend to next week. But we will be back the week after next, unless you decide to live stream or something. So May 14th, we'll be back live. Unless David live streams something next week.
Yeah, maybe. I need to get back to my Ocarina of Time playthrough at some point. I've just been incredibly busy recently.
I hear you on that.
Yeah, dude. It's like, just feel like I got so much going on. Ready for some downtime. I'm going on vacation at the end of July, and then I think June is when I set up a little bit of personal time. I want to get like a really big chunk of writing done, and I just like with how much I've been working and a lot of stuff that I've been doing recently, I need to be able to like sit down and just like write a lot. And so that is on the list. I'm
excited to see what you write, man.
Yeah, dude.
You need to, once you get done with something,
I'll let you read it.
Them have another contest. We'll have to enter it.
When I get a first draft done, I'll let you read it.
Okay.
You
heard it here, folks. Yeah. You heard it here first, folks. I need someone to clip this for me.
Yeah, it's mostly what I've been doing now is like character work, trying to get like a lot of that lined up, and then it's like a lot of scenarios, if that makes sense. Because I'm pulling a lot of this from either stuff that's like happened to me or co-workers, and so there's a few things I got to do. You could call it research, but I got to get a hold of a few of my old co-workers, ask them a couple questions to see if they remember any like it's like being able to pull from some of their experiences.
Right.
And then I just want to like make sure, like the biggest thing before I really start getting into like actual plot type stuff is that I just want all of my characters to feel like pretty solid about the direction that I would want to take them. And that's just like obviously, like we talk about this all the time, so obviously it's going to be important to me if I'm trying to like write something.
Yep.
And then I'm just trying to figure out kind of the humor side of it and how far to take that.
Oh yeah.
Because I think I've got like a pretty good grasp on it, but I'm trying to figure out like the details. But yeah, I promise. Once I kind of get a first draft down, I'll let you read it.
Okay.
Yeah. So other than that, maybe an Ocarina of Time stream at some point soon, and then we'll be back on the 14th. I guess I'm going to keep watching The Last of Us. That third episode did not bode well, man. It did not bode well for the future of this show. And who knows what else there'll be to talk about at that point. I think Justin and I are going to go see Thunderbolts at some point. Probably not next week, but maybe the week after. Not expecting a whole lot out of it. He wanted to go see it, and I was like, I'm curious. So, and they do like Tuesdays are like discounted movie ticket nights or whatever. So a lot of the time we'll just wait and then try to go see something on a Tuesday, so we don't have to pay as much money in case we're disappointed by it. Right. It's just kind of the way things go now. All right, Joseph. Well, thank you for tonight. Good luck with everything with your family. And thank you all for joining us, whether you're listening to this on a podcast network or whether you've caught this live or whether you watch this on YouTube later on. Thank you all so much for the support. And until next week, well, actually 2 weeks, y'all take it easy.
See ya.